Thank you so much. So we're talking about mistaken identities tonight. So if you came expecting Pink to sing for you, I'm sorry. I'm Sandra, not Pink. A few years ago, I had an amazing opportunity to reconnect with one of my cousins that I had not seen since I was about this tall. That's quite a difference from here to here. And we began talking, and I began sharing about my life and about my two children. They're now 19 and 16. I've been married for 20 years, actually 22. I have a really bad memory. That's why I have that, because I'll forget the verses. And I'm telling him my story and about my business and how I'm helping people. And he stops me, and he's like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Who are you? I don't know who you are. I remember this little girl that was always so quiet, always in the corner, never said anything. And now, look at you. I don't know who you are." And what he didn't know, and what probably no one but my one or two best friends growing up knew, was what it was like living in my house. My dad was a very difficult man. We grew up in the mountains of Virginia, and I don't know if anyone here has a barber in their family or knows what a razor strap is. It's a long piece of leather about this long. It's used to sharpen knives with. Well, my father hung that up in the hallway of our house that you had to pass through to get to the bedrooms and the bathroom, and reminded us on every occasion he had the opportunity to that if we misbehaved, he would use that razor strap on us. So he ruled our home out of fear. So at a very young age, as children do, and as Kim will help you figure out, I adapted to my situation and learned how to control my emotions, and I became a master at controlling my behavior so I wouldn't get in trouble. I understand now that really is suppression. When you suppress your emotions, you suppress your immune system. And that's kind of what I help my clients start to understand when they're physically ill, have sicknesses and diseases. There's usually a root cause for that. So as a child, I developed asthma. And if you start researching these things and learning about them, I was withholding my voice. I wasn't speaking. I wasn't standing up for myself. I didn't communicate how I felt. And I became very sick. I was a very sick child. I was that kid that couldn't run and play in PE. I was always on an inhaler, always on medication. And in those moments, because I was so weak so much of the time, I was searching and looking for something to help me feel better, because I was so weak when I would go out places and couldn't do all the things my friends did. I discovered that if I dressed up, I felt good about myself. So that's what I started to do. I dressed up all the time. I did my makeup all the time. I did my hair all the time, and I felt better. I felt good about myself. But that's not what people saw in me as I got older and grew really fast. They saw a tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed, thin girl. How could she be sick? So thinking back over my lifetime of a lot of mistaken identity, if I hadn't gone through these stories that I'm about to tell you really fast, I wouldn't be who I am today. So as that child, I know you have these same stories in your mind. You can think back, and I remember the office that I walked into when I was in elementary school, and I could tell I was about to have an asthma attack because I could feel the restrictions starting to happen in my lungs. And I walk into the office, and I tell the secretary, "I need to call my mom. I'm going to be sick." And as this story transpired over much of my life, she looked at me, kind of looked me up and down. She's like, "You don't look sick to me. You look fine. Go back to class." So as I did, as I was well practiced in, I got my behavior to match what I was expected to do. I went back to sit in class. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think really well, but I sat and made it through class. Same thing happened in high school. Went back to the same exact situation. I'm in high school. I'm older, taller. Have come through a couple years of doing these things. And the same thing happened. It could have been perfume. It was someone sat beside me that had a cat. I don't know what it was. And I felt that restriction. I went to the office and I said, I need to call my mom. I need to go home. And same thing. She looks at me. She's like, "You're the best looking sick person I've ever seen." But at this point, I had kind of started coming into myself. I was getting older, getting taller. And I started to develop this awareness of the face that I had earned. I'll call it a poker face. And I was really good at it. So my height mixed with my face kind of started giving me a little bit of power. And so I said, I need to call my mom right now. I need to go home. So I did go home that day. So I kind of started a little learning adaptation of what I could do. High school into college, that adaptation of that face, it became helpful because it let me have some power, but it kind of transpired over into the too much phase. And that face that I had was how I entered every room. Because at that point in my healing journey, it became, you're not going to get one over on me. You're not going to you're not going to be stronger than me. You're not going to hold me down. You're not going to not let me talk. So it became an overabundance of an effort to talk, to share my voice, to stand up for myself. So knowing that, and then becoming from that child that was the quiet one that never spoke into this like demonstrative, mean face, and that was what I was called. Now I was the mean girl. I was a stuck-up girl. I was all those things. And I'm like, that's not me either. I'm like, I cannot get this thing right. I'm like way over here, or I'm way over here. So I knew that, and that was my default setting for sure, because I'd walk into a room and I'd just be stone cold, especially if someone came at me with a certain attitude. So my freshman year of college, knowing that's what people thought of me now, I brought gifts for all of my roommates my freshman year. So the first thing they knew of me was, oh, she's really nice. She gives gifts. So again, I was like trying to figure out who I was and navigating that realm of, I really was a quiet, and I'm an extroverted introvert, but figuring out who I was. And that was a learning curve for me. A lot of the guys that I met called me the ice queen because I did not have time for that. At that moment, I wasn't ready. And then I started getting stronger, started getting better with my health, started figuring that out. But then my freshman year of college, I all of a sudden was informed that I had an ovarian cyst, which started a long line of other health issues. And I'm like, really? Am I that sick girl? Am I always going to be that sick girl, So that I had my first surgery as a freshman. Thought I recovered from that. A year later, I had to have another one. By this time, I was dating someone, good guy. I'm like, is he going to look at me and think, like, who am I getting with? Is she going to be sick all the time? So it's just trying to figure out, my body is trying so hard to be strong. I'm trying so hard to be strong. But this is the path that I'm on. And we ended up getting married. We had our first child. So, I'm coming around to, I got it under control. My asthma was so much better. I got stronger and more healthy. And 2 years after that, I was given the worst news, which was I had a borderline cancerous tumor. Life expectancy, probably won't be able to have any more children. I'm like, can I not catch a break? So at this time, though, coming through all the circumstances that I had, and there's so many of these stories, I had a volleyball coach that was just like my father, and before I ever even met him, his reputation preceded him. He likes to make girls cry. He's so mean. I'm like, oh, he hasn't met me yet. I can control that, and I did, and it was quite interesting. But I kept coming through those circumstances of learning how to control myself, control the people that I was with. What I couldn't control was my body and the things that were just there that weren't done to me. I didn't choose them. And I finally came to the point where I didn't look at myself as the sick girl. That's just how it was. It's just what I was given. And at the point that I had that situation happen, it was scary. I had a major surgery. I'm down an ovary. Still here, so I'm okay. But I figured out, you know what? I've had a lot of practice at this now. So, whatever happens, if I can't have any more children, of course I was sad. But if I can't have any more children, we'll figure it out, because this is how it is. And I can look back over this lifetime of the journey that I've made, and we'll figure it out, and we'll keep moving forward. So I had the surgery, and I did exactly what I had done in my past. I simplified my life. I asked for help because I knew I couldn't do these things on my own, and I recovered. And that was November, 17 years ago. In January, we found out we were having a baby boy. So it was pretty miraculous. So especially after that time, I'm like, I've got all this. I'm good to go, you know? So after that situation, fast forward to today, because that was 17 years ago, I stand before you, a person that has had a ton of things happen to them, but just because they happen isn't how I got where I am today, because people, again, they have an assumption about who I am right now, but the only way I got to who I am right now is decisions that I made back when I was young. One of the good decisions that my parents did make was they had us in church. And when I was about 13, I came across this verse, Psalms 107:30. If any of you grew up in a home like I did, with that much fear and that much noise in your head, this is a verse that I clung to as a 13-year-old. And I said it as a prayer for my life and an intention for the people that I would allow in my inner circle. Then are they glad because they be quiet. So he bringeth them unto their desired haven. So as a 13-year-old, I thought, whatever happens, I've had an example of what not to be like. I've had an example of what not to marry or what not to have in my family. I want that desired haven. I want a partner in life that will help me have that. And I clung to the other truths of the scripture because I didn't have people like Kim then. I didn't know about mental health coaches and counselors and those people that can help you that we have available now. All I knew was that word would not return void. I knew that, and I clung to that. Even though my parents gave me a bad example of it, I clung to that haven, and I clung to the other scriptures that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. I knew you in the belly before you were formed. I counted the hairs of your head. You surround yourself with people, iron sharpens iron. Select the people in your life very intentionally so you can get to the goal, so I can get to that desired haven. I can have that happy home. I can raise my kids in a good environment. So whatever has happened, whatever mistaken identity someone's placed on you or placed on yourself, because I did that too. I had so much self-doubt and fear. I always went back to the truth. And I kept reminding myself of that so that I turned every adaptation that I had into my superpower now. So now I can sit with my clients, myself, my family. I can be calm. I can be quiet. And I can help them find the path that I did. Thank you so much.